We have live examples like Amir Idrisi and the way that AMP has positioned itself today. Alhamdulillah, a very good journey. So I think we are almost on schedule, back on schedule. 8:30 time, Abdulla Thakur Sahab, you are on stage, please. Thank you so much. I would like to welcome him on stage. अब इतनी खामोशी जब हो जाती है तो फिर बड़ा अजीब सा लगता है कि एक ऐसा आदमी आएगा स्टेज पे जो I think just to give you a brief thing about Abdulla, because Abdulla has been a mentor as far as AP is concerned. He was one person who's been pushing behind us in terms of हम लोग कभी-कभी irritate हो जाते हैं. And I'm being very honest and I'm confessing it on stage that several times he used to call me at about 11:30 at night. हाजी क्या हो रहा है? वो जो हज्जी वाला जो सेंटेंस होता था वो बड़े कभी-कभी लगता था कि क्या करना चाह रहे हैं. But finally we've delivered and I think I'm happy. We have some loose ends. We'll make it up next time. Thank you. A big round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm obviously a bit nervous because there are some very senior people here. Very, very senior people. And usually when I get nervous on stage, I request my audience to take my nervousness off. So will you help me? So I'm going to say takbir, you say Allahu Akbar. Takbir. 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 I feel so relaxed. Alhamdulillah. I think when Amir was referring to that particular workshop that we did in Kurla, a school that had girls from very destitute families, after I finished the lecture, one of the girls, she came and she asked me a few questions. Very interesting question. And I thought she was a very talented girl. So the school principal came to me and she said, Mr. Abdullah, do you know who this girl is? I said, no. She said, this is the girl who was coming one day in rickshaw to our school and the rickshaw driver tried to kidnap her. And while she was being kidnapped, she tried to save herself by jumping and she literally broke every bone in her body. Now that girl was in front of me and her questions to me were not related to asking for money, asking for help. You know what she was asking for? Direction. This is what we Muslims are missing. Direction. We have lots of passion, lots of ambition, lots of excitement, mashallah. Direction. So with that I'll begin. Allah says in His Quran that He will not change the condition of a people until they change the condition themselves. What does this mean? It means a lot. Because the next few slides, these verses of Allah will come true. And hence the birth of our project in AMP, which is called Project One Rope, that we bring all the communities together, all the different thought processes together, and work on one direction. Can you move the slide, please? Yeah. Thank you. This is the poverty map of India. The darker red is very poor. The lighter red is little less poor. As you can see, this poverty map is the poverty map of India, not of Muslims, India. Strangely, if you look at where most of the poverty is, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Assam, West Bengal, also is the place where lots of Muslims live. So for all those Muslims in this audience who believe that there is a political design to keep Muslims poor, let me correct that today. Because where those Muslims are staying, there are a lot of Dalits, there are a lot of backward class Hindus who are as poor, if not more poor. So number one, we are not poor by someone's design. We are poor because Allah willed it to be. So do not question Allah's will by saying, this was done because of Fulan political party and Fulan political party. No political party, political leader in the world has the right to give anyone poverty or anyone wealth. So for us to think the way we think, we have to start changing that. So let me correct some realities. This is the political map? No, this is the poverty map of India. Slide. This is the map that shows that the least deprived, which means well-to-do, parts are the green ones. Kerala happens to be among them. Do we know that there are lots of Muslims living in Kerala? Yes. If you look at the Maharashtra region, does it look poor? Does it look poor to you? I come from Maharashtra. We are Kokanis here right now. We come from the least less deprived. But when within our community, we have to collect charity, it's always for us. So I remember I was doing an event in Brother Mohiddin's event in Ahmedi. And one of the brothers after the event, this one I did, he said, but there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that says that you have to look at the neighbor at your right and the neighbor at your left. I said, Wallahi, you're right. But what about the Bihari Muslim who doesn't have a neighbor on the right who's rich, or a neighbor on the left who's rich, or the person on the end of the road who's rich, or a relative who's rich? What happens to that Bihari Muslim? Where does he go? So the Muslims in India are poor because we, collectively, have been thinking in a very secluded manner. We blame others for being very secluded, but we behave the same way. Now if you look at the poverty line, from after the independence, I picked it up from 73 up until 2000, and now it's better. Poverty line has come down. Poverty has come down considerably, right? According to these numbers. I'm not saying that these are the numbers, these are facts. Let's see where it is today. Slide. According to statistics, World Bank, 872 million people in the world are poor, out of which 179 million today are poor in India. Not Muslims, Indians. Indians, 172 million are poor. $32 million Muslims living below the poverty line. This is the discounted number, gentlemen and sisters. Remember I showed you the dropping graph? From independence till now? This is the discounted number. This is like, sorry, this I would know this is a discounted cash flow number now. 32 million. How does that happen? Because there is no work being done there. We are leaving Ahmed Idrisi and AMP all by themselves. He goes to villages where nobody has gone. Why? Let me ask a very simple question today. There are a few Muslim organizations here. Which one represents Bihari Muslims? Raise your hands. Right there, Ahmed Idrisi. Which one represents Assamese Muslims? Raise your hands. Ahmed Idrisi. Which one represents West Bengal Muslims? Ahmed Idrisi. Wow. These are the most poorest parts of India. You don't need to listen to me. You should just do your own research. So I think, let me begin by showing these facts. We have 11 million Muslims poor below the poverty line, not poor, below the poverty line. 6 million in Bihar, 5 in West Bengal, 2.5 in Maharashtra, 1.5, 3.5 in Assam. Slide. So why is this the case? Why they are so poor, okay? There are reasons for it, and I attended the annual convention in December, and I had the pleasure of sharing the stage with Professor Amitabh Kundu, who works for the government of India. He's head of statistics. So every number given by the Ministry of Finance, the minister himself, Arun Jaitley, comes from Professor Amitabh. He told me that Muslims are poor because of these 3 reasons. Number 1, the ones who are poor do not own lands. When you don't own the land, you have no hope. Then, this one I want you to pay attention to. Muslims drop out from class 7 and class 8, right? You want to hear the interesting fact of that number. They don't just drop out from regular schools. This is a dropout number from madrasas. This is a dropout number from Islamic madrasas. 0 skills. We look at the same people poor for generations because there's no skills. They don't wish to have skills. You want to know why? They're living off your charity. They're living off your charity. So, does the hadith say about being the receiving hand or the giving hand? The giving hand, right? What happens if you're giving charity to the same person for the last 30 years? What have you done to him? Made him an expert in which hand? Receiving hand. What happens when all us Konkani Maharashtrians decide only to give charity to the Konkanis? What happens when all the UP guys decide only to give charity to the UP Muslims? We have a lot of hands that become receiving hands. How can we remove this poverty? Currently, what we do is when somebody comes to ask for charity, it's for making a house, a marriage donation, if he or she is an orphan, a madrasa donation, this is very popular, the madrasa donation, medical need and school donation. Now ask yourself, which of this will remove poverty? Which of this would? Which one? School, right? Okay, now let me ask you another question. Will that option remove poverty now? No. You put a child to school. Is his family now no longer poor? Okay, is his family no longer poor next week? Next month? Next year? You want to wait for 15 years until this poor child has to suffer because we, the donors, did not use our money properly. That is why we are poor this long. There is no other reason. I remember once I had gone to one of the lajnas here in Kuwait and I said, how about, I want to think about making a masjid in India. He said, sir, we can't. I said, why, you stop? He said, no, we're full. I said, you're full? What does that mean? He said, we finished 3,000 masajid at a cost of 7,000 KD. Said, wow, this is in India? He said, yes. I said, inshallah, there are so many Muslims going to pray there. So the management of zakat and sadaqah funds needs to be looked at. It needs to be understood a little better. It is impossible for any nation, unless you're in Africa, to be poor that much this long. It's impossible. India is the only country. Thailand used to be more poor than us. Thailand now is an economic giant. Slide. So what do we generally do with all our zakat? Like I said, we give cash, we give to orphans, health issues, marriages, madrasas, schools, masajid, all of which has no governance, no control, no monitor, very low impact. Does anybody know of a general body that governs madrasas? Raise your hands. Do you know any body that governs madrasas? Anybody knows?
Yeah, the madrasa boards in some of the states, I believe.
Yeah, is there a central body?
Is it Oka?
No? No? There is no body. They're all independent. Okay? Which means when you have independence, what do you have? You have power. Which means you can do as you please. So they will come here and give you a very nice presentation. After that, you have no right to ask them anything. The most important question to you, who are potential donors, and which is why this project is being developed. Your money, when it goes to a person, what do you think is happening? You're trying to help this person, right? That's mashallah your intention, to help this person. Now when you know that this person will take the money and finish his need, whatever his need, in the next 2 weeks or the next 2 months, it's finished. After that, he's back again poor. Why does it take us so long? Like this guy who told me of this story, I don't know if it's true. He said the Japanese factory had this conveyor belt, which they spent millions of dollars collaborating the weight so that the product does not get off. The Indian guy, he just put a Usha fan on, and every time the light product was coming through, it just flew off the conveyor belt. So sometimes it's a lot of common sense and logic you need to do to get to the real solution, which Amr was talking about. Slide. So how can we start challenging poverty? Number one, we have to identify the illiterate. We always talk about illiteracy among Muslims, illiteracy among Muslims. We give a number, so many millions, so many lives. We don't know who they are. So if I picked up Ahmed Idrisi today and said, in UP, can you tell me how many Muhammads, how many Abduls, how many Razaks are illiterate? I don't know. So we believe in these tagline stories. We believe in slogan building. But we never have details. You can't implement a solution without details. It's impossible. If you sat in a restaurant hungry and you just kept looking at the menu and then at the waiter, guess what? He can't get you the food because you still haven't ordered. And then if you told him, give me food, he will again look at you because he still doesn't know what your order is. Where are the details? Slide. China is the world's largest economy. Do you know what are the contributing factors why China is the largest economy? Manufacturing? Please, can you go back? Manufacturing and industry. 40% of the economy is based on that. Why is this important? It's because this is how we're basing our project on. Manufacturing, if you remember, China became a giant in the 80s, then in the 90s. Does anybody know, and some of you may have visited China during that time and recently, did you ever see manufacturing units of China being located inside Shanghai? No. Inside Beijing? No. Where were they? In the remote villages. Right? Guangzhou is a remote area, now it's popular. In India, we have all our factories around the urban cities. So if Mumbai is popular, Pune is now very famous. If UP has something, or closer to Lucknow, this is not where the poor are. So even as a government, even as a nation, we don't have a sound economic policy. We talk about it, we brag about it, we give huge statements around the world, but our reality on the ground is that we are not playing to our strengths. China played to their strengths. They realized they had 1 billion people, most of them living in the villages. They said, move your factory. Mr. Nike, go to that village. Mr. Adidas, go to that village. Why? Cheap. Land is cheap, cost of labor is cheap. So today, if Ahmed and I launched a factory and we invited Mr. Farooq to invest, Mr. Farooq will say, give me a very lean and mean P&L. We said, okay. Will we launch that factory inside Bandra? No. Will we launch it closer to Thane? No. We have to go to a remote village to get the least per day wages to make it work. This is the opportunity that faces us Muslims. Professor Aratat Kundi told us in that convention, he said there is a very good thing that's going to happen in 2025 in India. Some of you may know it, but if you don't, I'll tell you today. India will end up being the world's largest middle income population. The world's largest, 500 million. China doesn't have it. We will have it. 500 million. Then he said, this is actually bad news. I told him, why? This is good. He said, well, these are consumers, but there is not enough production in the country to supply to these consumers. You know who they're going to buy from? They're going to buy from China. Because we don't have enough production within the country. This is the opportunity for us. And this is what we're going to talk about. So if you look at the production comparison of India to China, China is at 28%, we are at 12%. So just think for a minute. If AMP came up with an opportunity to create 10 new factories, with full feasibilities and everything, wouldn't it be smart of few people to start getting involved in such projects? Number one, as investors, because it's a lean and mean project. Number two, if this was, what's the name of the district that you went to, which is the worst now? Siddharthnagar. Siddharthnagar is now rated as the lowest of the low India can get, where mostly Muslims live. Imagine you made it there. Imagine you made that factory there. That factory may make chairs, it may make chappals, it may make clothes. And you hired 200 Muslims. What did you do? You began the process of taking them out of poverty. The only way people cannot be poor is when they have a job. They do not get away from poverty when they receive your charity. They only remain temporarily out of that status. They go back to it. But imagine if you made a factory and hired 200 people in it, wouldn't you be the people who actually initiated the eradication of poverty of 200 Muslims right then and there? So we've heard this so many times, give a man a fish, he eats for the day, which is the conventional zakat. Teach the man how to fish and he eats for a lifetime. And these are the two projects AMP is bringing to you. The Muslim Employment Program and the Muslim Small Business Program. These are the two projects that will transform, inshallah, with Allah's will and grace and His might, the situation of Muslims. Because Muslims acted on it. Coming back to the first ayah on the first slide. He will not change the situation of Muslims until they change it themselves. So how can we change it ourselves? To end poverty, we need to create jobs. Jobs for who? Not the middle class, for the poor. Where are the poor? They're in the villages. We need to create these small businesses that Ahmed was talking about. This little vegetable shop, this little rickshaw, this little sewing machine. We need to create 100,000 jobs every year. We need to launch 1,000 new businesses. And we Muslims finally need to start contributing to India's economy. We are the least contributors within the economy. Least. Why? Because the majority of us are poor. That's why. Not because any one of us does anything wrong. It's because most of us are poor. We are living on handouts given by the government or by donors like us. So we need to start contributing to India's economy. So we decided to come up with a revolutionary concept that connects zakat to economy. Imagine connecting zakat to an improved economy.